You're watching World Now on TVC News. At least 27 Palestinians have been killed, including many children and women, in an overnight Israeli attacks on Rafah and Gaza City. Egypt's foreign minister says it's hopeful about a new proposal for a Gaza troops as a Hamas delegation is due in Cairo for talks today. We have more in this report.
Relatives of hostages held by Hamas terrorists in the Gaza Strip set up a Passover table at Hostages Square in Tel Aviv as weekly protests against the government begin. Families raise bloody hands at the table, symbolizing the blood on the hands of the government, which they accuse of not doing enough to secure a deal to bring their loved ones home. At least 27 Palestinians have been killed, including many children and women, in overnight Israeli attacks on Rafah and Gaza City. Israeli warplanes struck 3 houses in the refugee camp where over 1 million Palestinians have taken shelter from months of Israeli bombardment. The attacks occurred despite Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas pleading with the U.S. to stop Israel from attacking the body city. Mr. Abbas, who heads the Palestinian Authority, said that the U.S. was the only nation capable of halting Israel's assault on Rafah. The White House on Sunday said U.S. President Joe Biden had again spoken with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as pressure builds on Israel and Hamas to reach a deal that will free some Israeli hostages and bring a ceasefire in the nearly 7-month-long war in Gaza. The White House said that Biden reiterated his clear position as Israel plans to invade Gaza's southernmost city of Rafah, despite global concern for more than 1 million Palestinians sheltering there. Students across universities in the U.S. have been protesting against Israel's war on Gaza for days. Protesters are calling for universities to divest from corporations that profit from Israel's war on Gaza. They are also demanding that universities sever academic ties and collaboration with Israeli universities and programs. The student organizers are seeking the release of students arrested during protests. At least 900 students have been arrested nationwide. 34,488 Palestinians have been killed and 77,643 injured in Israel's war on Gaza since October 7. At least 34 people were killed and another 68 injured in the latest 24-hour reporting period.
Joining me now is lecturer politics and international relations, Liverpool Hope University, Bola Adediran. Ms. Adediran, thank you for joining us on The World Now. We've seen the protests in the United States now evolve into some form of violence between pro and anti-Palestinians protesters. What is this saying about the new dimension to perceptions in how Americans perceive what's going on in Gaza?
Well, I think that it's reflective of the sort of the debate within the U.S. Among citizens generally about the war in Gaza. You have a large number of people who are very uncomfortable about how Israel has prosecuted the war thus far and are concerned about the perception that atrocities are being committed, that international law is being violated, and perhaps also that, as we have seen in the last few days, that in fact perhaps those atrocities include mass executions, perhaps, and individuals, more than 300 individuals who have been reported to have been buried in mass graves. So there are concerns, and there are cause for concerns. But at the same time, as you rightly mentioned, there are also people on the different aisle of this argument, vigorously defending Israel's right to prosecute the war in the way that it fits, and to try to smoke out the Hamas terrorists who did it damage on October 7th.
Absolutely. On the sideline of the economic summit currently holding in Saudi Arabia, you hear Palestinian authorities saying the U.S., that perhaps it's only the U.S. that can stop Israel's incursion into Rafah, that's in southern Gaza. And you add up what the implication of that will be, because almost 50% of people, in Gaza are now in that part of the country seeking shelter. Would you say that the U.S. has done enough in intervening and reining on Israel to be able to stop these attacks?
No, absolutely not. The U.S. has not done enough. I think that's very clear. And even President Biden is experiencing, is reeling from the polls on that. In fact, part of the reasons why he's trailing Trump is because of the perception that he has aided Benjamin Netanyahu's unnecessary sort of war of aggression, and perhaps the kind of the violence that we've seen against Palestinians that Biden has supported it in some ways or has not done enough. So yes, the U.S. could have done much. One of the ways in which it could have done something is to make it conditional that the arms transfer and the military aid that has been providing Israel is conditional on meeting certain targets and certain targets. But having said, the real question is even if the U.S. withdraws its support or rolls back its support to some extent, will this deter Benjamin Netanyahu from prosecuting the war as he has done so far? I'm not completely sure about that, because as what we know from Benjamin Netanyahu, is not only a right-wing leader, but he also believes that his position and his politics really depends on really taking the war to Hamas and flushing them out.
All right.
So I'm not sure whether Biden could have really done much in that respect.
So while President Biden was at an event in Washington yesterday, there were critics of his handling of Gaza protesting outside. You talked about those numbers, and time will tell how much of this will impact on his position, on Israel's war. But then there's also the politics back in Israel, because as we speak now, there are opposition to Netanyahu who are already raising concerns about his handling of this conflict. One of them recently did say that the current government would not have the right to continue to exist if a reasonable deal to return the hostages was not accepted. Talk to us about how much impact you think politics is having on this role.
Well, from almost the beginning of the war, there have been perceptions that Benjamin Netanyahu has been playing to the gallery, that there were deals to be done in the early October, November to bring the hostages home, and Netanyahu was recalcitrant. In fact, I remember that diplomats from Qatar made that allegation at that time that Benjamin Netanyahu was actually playing politics because, of course, in some ways, the aggressiveness that he has displayed with this war boosts his support, his base at home in some respect. I mean, he's leading a really right-wing government. So, yes, it is absolutely true that the Israeli government could have done a bit more in terms of negotiating with Hamas, negotiating with some of the countries that have been involved in this deal, Egypt and Qatar, to bring hostages home. But the question, even at this moment, is that we don't even know how many hostages are actually alive. Some reports say that most of the hostages are actually dead now, and a deal cannot be done based, at least the deal that Benjamin Netanyahu wants to be done, cannot be done because there are not enough hostages for the deal that they're trying to strike. But I think that yes, there is a ground for that kind of allegations being leveled against Netanyahu, that he's not done enough to bring the hostages on.
It appears complex and complicated, but there definitely has to be a way around this, given the figures of casualty and fatality that we're counting in the past months. Thank you so much for the updates there. Dr. Bola Adediro, live for us in London.
Thank you for having me.